What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. Today I want to go over a very important topic today, something that a lot of people have actually brought up to me this year regarding Madden 21, and that is auto subs. And this is something that I've addressed on multiple occasions in the past, but specifically speaking, I want to address how it affects you and your game in Madden 21 versus Madden 20 and go over some of the reasons that auto subs are critical for you and very important for you to pay attention to and adjust accordingly in Madden 20 if you want to be successful and win more games and have less injuries and fumble less and all these different things that auto subs actually affect. So, number one, I want to discuss the changes coming from Madden 20 to Madden 21. And the first change is that fatigue matters more in Madden 21 than it did in Madden 20. You guys might notice that your players are potentially getting fatigued quicker. In Madden 21, you might potentially notice that even positions that didn't fatigue before, like quarterbacks and some skill positions that didn't really ever appear all that tired on the field, are appearing much more tired now. And that is a direct result of a change that they made this year, going from less fatigue impact and less stamina impact to that stamina actually mattering quite a bit more this year. So that is one reason why auto subs matter more this year, and another reason why auto subs actually matter more this year is essentially just because of the fact that players seem to sub out less this year, and auto subs actually tend to have less of an impact if you don't adjust them accordingly. So if we go to auto subs, for example, last year you could get away with simply increasing your auto subs up into the 70s, and you would, when your players got tired enough, they would start to actually sub out of a game. But this year in Madden 21, I've noticed that until you start breaking into the 80s on these sliders, your players really will not sub out of the games. And it's even more emphasized on simulation football, where it's, you're doing it broadcast style and it's CPU versus CPU. You really start to notice that your players don't sub out really much at all unless you get into the high 80s and approach 90s, which is kind of crazy, because last year you could get your players to sub out an efficient amount by having these sliders at around 75 or maybe even 80. And so that is really important. And then the other things that I want to talk about with you guys today on why these sliders are so important and why you want to pay attention to these things is essentially just the fact that you're going to fumble less and you're going to get injured less if you guys are actually utilizing these sliders correctly. The reason that you're going to fumble the ball less, and this goes out to your halfbacks, your quarterback, your wide receiver, the more tired your player is on the field, and it's been this way for years in Madden, the more tired your player is on the field and you can physically see whether they're tired or not, the more chance they have of actually fumbling the football. And likewise with injuries, the more tired they are as they start to take hits, the more likely they are to get injured. So if I have James Conner out there and I'm running him ragged and he's just constantly running into the defense and I visibly notice that he's tired on the field, I should not be surprised when I run him straight at a good linebacker and he either fumbles or he breaks his leg. That is something that you guys have to be highly aware of in game, is that if you really stress out your starters and you have them out there on the field for too long, they will start to have fumbling issues and they will start to pick up many, many more injuries. And so one of the things that I want to point out to you guys is that I have far less injuries than pretty much anybody else in my franchises. My friends, whatever, everybody included. And the reason for those, and you guys can see through 5 weeks I have no injuries and we have injuries on. The reason for that is that I properly manage my auto subs and I properly sub in backups so that my offense just does not get tired, or my defense doesn't get tired as much. If they get tired, even slightly tired, they're getting subbed off the field for somebody better. And one thing that factors into that is actually having decent backups that can come in and fill in for you. You're obviously going to be stretched more thin if you don't have good backups and you don't want them subbing onto the field. So first things first, make sure you guys get yourself some decent backups and actually pay attention to who's going to be subbing in for your players, and then make sure you increase your auto sub sliders so that these backups will actually come into the game whenever your starters are tired. I don't want my David DeCastro or my Marquise Pouncey or my Ben Roethlisberger or my Juju or my James Conner getting injured, because I don't feel confident necessarily with starting somebody that's behind mind them, but I don't mind if Steven Wisniewski comes in for a play or two to prevent Marquise Pouncey from getting injured. I don't mind if Benny Snell or Anthony McFarland comes in for a few plays here and there if that prevents James Conner from fumbling the ball more, if that prevents him from getting injured. So that is essentially the impact of why this is so important for you guys. And one of the things that I want to go over here is the ideal sliders that I've found this year that I think give me the right amount of substitution. And let's go to my auto subs. That is around the 80 to 85 mark. And like I said, you can go higher with this if you're not noticing enough substitution, but this is higher than last year. Last year, like I said, you could have this in the 70s and be okay. But this year in Madden, you have to be up into the 80s, close to 90, before you really start to see your players sub out when they're supposed to, because of the changes that they made with fatigue and the changes that they made with players just simply not subbing out as much. You have to make these adjustments. And so one of the main things that I want to note for you guys is that with all of my positions right now, I have them set to 85 and 80. I have it set to 85 sub in, and then 80 sub out. And, you can't go higher with the sub out number than you can with the sub in. So I always just put the sub out number as 5 less than the sub in number. I don't actually have any factual information to back up why I do that. It's just my OCD. I see a 5, I see a 0. It's nice. It rounds out. I mean, ideally speaking, you guys would probably want to set them at like 85, 84, if that's what you're looking to do. 85, 84 would probably be the ideal one, but that really hurts my brain, so I don't set it that way. I set it at 85 and 80. And right now, that works fine for most of my positions. Now, one of the positions that I've noticed still does not sub out the way that I want them to, because I have multiple middle linebackers that I like to give playing time to, is my middle linebackers. And so what I'm going to start doing, and I wish there was a separate sub-in, sub-out slider for outside versus inside linebackers because I run a 3-4, I would like my inside linebackers to sub out almost at a rate of like 95 to 90. And my outside linebackers, I don't want to sub in and out that much. So I'm kind of in a tough spot where I don't want to necessarily take it too high because I don't want Bud Dupree and TJ Watt to be off the field. And so that's something worth considering. But it's very important that you guys at least consider what's going on with these positions, consider which positions you actually have good backups at that you don't mind coming into the game, and make sure that you guys adjust accordingly. Another note here is that if you guys notice that you're getting burnt on long drives and stuff like that, and you find that your defense is really weakening out as they get to the red zone, that is due to your auto subs not being set correctly, because your starters are probably staying on the field too long, and by the time you come down to the red zone, your starters are either still on the field and they're super tired, or you've resorted to your backups at that point. Whereas if you have your auto sub set correctly, whenever your starters start to get tired, they sub out, and then by the time you get down to the red zone, they are probably subbed back into the game fresh and ready to go and stop the other team from getting a touchdown. So that's another positive effect that you can have by increasing your auto subs. Now, one thing I want to note for you guys, and this is the most crucial thing of making your auto subs here, is that you have to hit that accept and continue button in the bottom left. It's not like your other settings or your other sliders where you can just press circle and back out of it to save the settings. If I switch this up to 195, for example, and I just press circle and back out of here, essentially it's going to give me the option to say, any unsaved changes will be lost. If I just back out, it's not going to save those changes. I go back into my auto subs and those aren't going to be there. If you want to actually save these changes, which I might want to do with my middle linebacker, so let's say I go set it to, 5 points higher just to help me out a little bit, set it at 90 and 85, I then press the options button to accept and continue, and you'll be able to actually save those settings. So if we go back in one more time, you guys will actually be able to see where that setting's at. And so this is where I say my ideal sliders are for auto subs, and that is why auto subs matter this year in Madden. And they actually matter far more this year, I think, than they do in past years, and you really need to dedicate some time to figuring out which positions you want want to have your auto sub sliders at. What level? I personally recommend, like I said, starting out in the 80s, because then you'll start to get some realistic substitution. Like I said, in my games, I tend to see my backups actually coming in and spelling my starters. Like offensively speaking, I really like to see Benny Snell coming in occasionally for James Conner. I like to see Steven Wisniewski subbing in on the offensive line from time to time. And one of the other most important points that I wanted to tell you guys is that I don't get injured like other teams get injured, because of the fact that I'm constantly subbing my players out when they're tired. And I don't know if people realize that the injuries are due to your players being tired, and they're directly linked with that. But if you start to gain a knowledge of that and understand that your auto subs directly affect how much you get injured, they directly affect how much you fumble the ball, and you adjust your sliders accordingly, you guys are going to be at much higher of an advantage in your franchise modes compared to people that just completely disregard their auto subs altogether, which is actually a majority of players from my understanding. A lot of people don't even touch their auto subs. So if you guys are doing it, you're already ahead of the game. I really hope that this helps you guys out in some way, and I hope that you guys spread this video around to other people, because this is something that everybody needs to know about, especially the changes going from Madden 20 to Madden 21. I really want to help people out with this one, make sure people know it, so get this out there and spread it around. Leave a like on the video if this does help you guys out in some way or gives you some valuable information. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and comment down below with anything you guys would like to see next. I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you guys have a good night. Peace.